Have you ever experienced a silence so intense it seems to convey more than 1,000 words? That sense that someone is thinking of you, without uttering a single phrase, can feel confusing. I'm not referring to the awkward silences of better not to talk today, but rather those filled with significance, with gestures and glances that speak on their own. It's astonishing how silence, although it might appear empty, can hide invisible messages. If you find these topics intriguing, I invite you to join our channel La Sabiduría de los Siglos and turn on notifications. My aim is to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support is key to achieving it. Thank you for being part of this community. Stoic thinkers were quite certain about this. Actions and thoughts are genuine indicators of what is happening in a person's mind. If you've ever wondered whether someone is thinking about you, even without saying it, maybe the evidence is less hidden than it appears. In today's session, I'd like to share 10 signs that this person keeps you in mind, even in silence. Don't leave before seeing the last sign, as it will leave you breathless. Before we begin, listen to this story that powerfully reflects the wisdom contained in these quiet moments. In a secluded little village, lost among mountains, lived Helena, a young woman who had loved Mateo with great intensity. Since childhood, they had shared dreams and laughter under star-filled skies. However, one day, after a disagreement, Mateo departed without offering explanations. Silence settled between them, yet Helena could not ignore the odd feeling that they remained somehow connected. As the days went by, Helena started to perceive delicate signs, as though fate was trying to remind her of something. One afternoon, as she wandered through the village, a warm gust of wind brushed against her face. It was no ordinary breeze. It held a quality that carried her back to the moment Mateo said, "When the wind grazes you like this, it's because part of me is searching for you." Helena stopped in her tracks, recalling those words that still echoed inside her. Another morning, as soon as she awoke, she came upon a wilted flower in her garden. It was the same one Mateo had given her for a birthday years ago. Even though she had paid it no attention for months, it seemed as if some imperceptible force had kept its essence alive. To Helena, that flower symbolized that, despite the distance and the passing months, a trace of Mateo was still determined to uphold their bond. In her dreams, Helena often glimpsed Mateo. They didn't speak, but their looks conveyed everything. At times, a faint smile would emerge on his face, hinting that even in wordless space, there was a channel of deep communication. Helena realized that signs aren't always delivered through words. Sometimes, they are heart-born gestures, whispers that imperceptibly caress the soul. The moral here is evident. Even though silence may seem like an unyielding wall, the heart signals find their way through. The footprints of those who have marked our lives remain, even when we fail to see them clearly. We sense their presence in tiny details, in fleeting moments that restore that connection. Before delving into the signs that prove someone is thinking of you, I invite you to subscribe to our channel La Sabiduría de los Siglos and turn on notifications. My goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers, and each one of you is crucial in reaching that milestone. Your support motivates us to keep creating inspiring content that touches the soul. Thank you for accompanying us. Let's begin with the first lesson, the language of silence. Perhaps you've encountered someone who, without saying a word, makes you feel a very clear message. Their gestures, their glances, or even the atmosphere they give off can reveal much about what stirs in their mind. That's the power of silence, expressing what words can't accomplish. Small actions often go unnoticed, yet can convey more than any speech. We're not talking about that uncomfortable pause that ends in a "don't talk to me now, we'll see later." We refer instead to that subtle silence that emerges in what you do unconsciously, in what you don't say but appears in your gestures and movements. That is the true language, brimming with stories waiting to be told. We all recognize that words are only the tip of the iceberg in any conversation. They might be appealing, pleasant, or even profound, but genuine importance usually lies in what isn't said. Stoics, with their pragmatic outlook, reminded us that gestures and speech are merely resources, while real value is found in actions we carry out without seeking applause. Have you ever paused to examine those nearly imperceptible gestures that might reveal far more than a lengthy monologue? Like when someone throws you a fleeting glance, leans slightly toward you, or remains in a prolonged, uneasy hush. Those are sparks, minimal signals of intentions and thoughts. Think, for instance, of that person who seems distant yet follows you with their eyes in a crowded setting. They might not say anything or make promises, but their gaze holds a subtle bond. Those small hints of "I have you on my mind" become visible in their posture, in the way they move, in how they act whenever you're near. Even without speaking, they show more than any direct statement might achieve. You don't always need words to express your feelings. It's enough to pick up on those details to reveal what's truly happening. Why can silence feel so revealing? Because staying quiet doesn't mean lacking thoughts. In many cases, silence is the most honest manifestation of what simmers inside. You don't need to hear words when the body's signals say everything. Silence is heavy with tension, repeated gestures, extended eye contact, or subtle nervousness can betray deep emotions. Notice how someone positions themselves close to you, respecting your space yet making their presence known. It's all clear proof that, even unspoken, you're on their mind. So, the next time someone remains silent, don't be deceived by appearances. Their gestures, their body language, and those tiny movements can tell you more than you think. Occasionally, silent communication is more genuine than any words cast to the wind. Actions, even the slightest ones, always resonate more strongly than speeches. Sometimes, listening to that silence and mindfully observing those nuances can be the best way to understand what's truly happening in someone's mind. As Carl Jung once said, "What isn't said is often the most significant." Silence has its own dialect, and if you learn how to hear it, you'll find truths that words can never capture. Now then, have you ever felt that sixth sense? That hard-to-describe impression that someone is thinking of you, even when they don't show it. It's as if there were a vibration linking people beyond actual sentences. Maybe you lack concrete evidence, but you just feel it. It isn't magic or fantasy, though if you prefer to see it that way, that's fine. It's simply the natural connection between the emotions and energies of two individuals. In that quiet space, the signs become even clearer. What's striking is how the clues telling us someone is thinking about us can be so subtle they almost disappear. You don't need that individual to stare at you or constantly seek you out to sense their energy. Sometimes, it's the faintest shift in the atmosphere, a single moment of calm, or a sudden feeling of closeness. You might be at home, absorbed in your tasks, when all at once a thought of that person arises. It isn't accidental. It's a bond that pulses on a deeper level, as though your energies have synced. Those feelings can arise in countless forms. You might recall a gesture that moved you, or revisit in your mind a meaningful conversation. Sometimes, it's a baffling emotion, as if something within you resonates at that person's frequency. It's like the universe giving you a gentle nudge, reminding you that, though you don't see or speak to each other, the link endures. Even in moments of doubt, these discreet signals reassure you that something else is there, something you don't need to hear to understand. Another key indicator is the effect that person's energy has on you. Without fully realizing, their presence in your thoughts may shape your mood. Imagine you're going through a rough patch when suddenly a wave of unexpected serenity or mental clarity washes over you. It could be a sign that person is silently wishing you well, The Stoic viewpoint emphasizes noticing how our emotions color our interpretation of the world. By directing attention toward the positive, you may tune into the energies of those around you, harnessing that invisible bond to find balance. If you still doubt whether these connections are real, there's a simple test. Observe how your emotions change when you think of that person. Do you sense calm, hope, or a spark of optimism? These shifts aren't random. They are evidence that their energy is alive in your life, that there's a tie exceeding mere words. Sometimes, the world doesn't shout its answers but murmurs them quietly, waiting for those prepared to listen. Energy doesn't recognize boundaries or distances. Even in the absence of words, the signals linger. The deepest bonds don't demand extensive explanations, for they become obvious in how they affect and transform us. This sixth sense is nothing more than a reminder of how interconnected we are as human beings, an echo of the universe uniting us in ways we often overlook. Don't underestimate these hints. You might uncover solutions you never knew you needed. Perhaps it's just sheer happenstance, fate, or a special alignment of stars attempting to alert you to something. At times, what appears to be coincidence transcends that, as though the universe communicates in its own manner. It might be an unexpected run-in with someone you've been thinking about or hearing their name at the unlikeliest instant. The question lingering is, could it be a sign, or merely your imagination? The Stoics believed in accepting whatever life puts in front of you, aware that everything fits into a larger plan. Yet, being honest, we don't always possess the insight to view it that way. When our mind fixates on something, we tend to perceive it everywhere. These signs might not always be what they appear. Frequently, they reflect our own thoughts. It's as if our focus conjures those coincidences, shaping the idea that a greater force is at play behind the curtain. For instance, that assumption that the universe orchestrates a meeting at exactly the right time. But what if it's only your concentrated attention magnifying trivial details? Stoic philosophy urges us not to overindulge in our interpretations. Often, coincidences are life's little games, and what genuinely matters is how we decide to respond. Do you latch onto the thought that they are divine signals, or treat them as nudges prompting you to explore your emotions more deeply? Ultimately, it's not the event but how you act upon it that counts. Your power resides in how you handle your thinking and infuse meaning into what appears unimportant. Imagine, for a moment, that these signs are merely echoes of your own subconscious, bringing to the surface what you already carry inside. Instead of looking outward for validation, perhaps it's more useful to look within. According to an ancient Stoic maxim, whatever is truly meant for you arrives without your anxious pursuit. Hence, rather than obsessing over every small occurrence, learn to let go and enjoy the natural flow of life. Then there's the emotional mirror, the puzzling sense of matching someone else's feelings without speaking at all. Maybe you felt a sudden sadness or burst of joy without knowing its origin. It isn't witchcraft but a shared sense of empathy that connects us. Sometimes this bond is so strong that you pick up someone else's energy in spite of the distance, as if their emotions were mirrored in you, forging a tie that transcends what's visible. The emotional mirror shows us how deeply linked we are as human beings. Experiencing another person's feelings is not weakness but evidence of empathy and sensitivity. Nonetheless, the Stoics warn us not to get carried away by sensations that aren't ours. Recognizing them is vital, but so is preserving our inner balance. If that connection rocks you, use it to reflect and nurture personal growth, instead of allowing it to overwhelm you. In the end, life is packed with coincidences, shared emotions, and moments that seem to surpass the ordinary. But what truly defines these experiences isn't what happens, but how you choose to interpret each one. Signals, emotions, and random events exist, yet you assign them the meaning you prefer. As the Stoics claimed, Genuine wisdom lies in accepting what we can't control and proceeding with balance in what does belong to us. That every verbal interaction be essential in order to be meaningful. If you've ever sensed that someone is thinking of you even from afar, perhaps you've tapped into what the Stoics called universal connection. It's as though our emotions and thoughts can travel along an invisible thread, linking us beyond obvious expressions or gestures. But is it possible for someone to occupy our minds so fully that we even feel them under our own skin? Picking up from our earlier question about whether someone can be so present in your mind that you practically feel them beneath your own skin, we can now focus on how the Stoics viewed this phenomenon. With their rational yet deeply human outlook, they believed everything is intricately interwoven. According to their philosophy, thoughts and emotions affect not only those who experience them directly, but also anyone connected to them in some way. It's not about magic or supernatural forces, but rather an emotional harmony that often goes unnoticed, even though it's always there, working in the background. Reflect for a moment on times when someone suddenly pops into your mind for no clear reason. It might be a quick flash of thought, yet it arrives at precisely the right moment, as though that person were actually by your side. Is it random chance? Possibly, but the precision can be so striking that it's hard not to attach some significance to it. These are the moments when you feel your emotional state shift abruptly, hinting at a deeper bond. Maybe you sense a wave of melancholy surfacing from nowhere or a burst of joy, almost as if you're absorbing someone else's feelings. Occasionally, these connections appear in dreams. With no conscious interaction, you might picture someone vividly, feel their presence, or even experience emotions connected to them. This could indicate a resonance that goes beyond verbal expression or direct engagement. It's like our minds operate in tandem on a level we can't fully grasp, but that nonetheless exists beyond doubt. There are also instances when you're simply going about your day and pick up a distinct link with somebody, even if they're not physically near. It's a sensation of synchronicity that may be disconcerting, yet often signals that unspoken emotions and thoughts are moving between you. In line with Stoic teachings, while these events can seem overwhelming, the key is to keep calm. Not every sensation you feel is strictly yours, and it's best not to treat every fleeting perception as an ultimate truth. Sorting out what arises from within and what might come from others is an exercise in self-awareness, enabling you to handle these connections with balance and prudence. Meditation or quiet reflection can help identify which emotions genuinely belong to you and which may be echoes of someone else's experiences. Ultimately, no one undertakes this emotional voyage alone. The invisible threads we share with others are part of our human condition. Still, we needn't be swept away by them. Meeting these experiences with understanding and composure makes it easier to maintain the stability we need for a fulfilled life. In the end, the real issue isn't controlling these connections, but recognizing them as part of the emotional richness that brings depth to our existence. You might interpret dreaming about someone as proof they're thinking of you, even if they don't say so aloud. From various philosophical and psychological perspectives, dreams act like a window into our subconscious. Though the Stoics emphasized reason and emotional self-command, they didn't rule out that our sleeping minds can reflect whatever occupies a prominent spot in our daily thoughts. Dreaming about someone who played a significant emotional role in your life doesn't always mean they are actively thinking of you, but neither is it a meaningless accident. That dream could simply represent unresolved feelings, shared memories, or even lingering emotional ties. However, if you notice something in that dream that feels bigger than yourself, you might ask if it's a hint of a deeper link you can't see in plain sight. Stoic thought encourages us not to jump to shallow conclusions but to pursue clarity and poise. If you dream about someone, instead of obsessing over possible implications, try to focus on how that dream made you feel. Did it bring you peace, longing, or maybe uncertainty? The essential point isn't the literal imagery of the dream, but what it reveals about your own thoughts and emotions. It's also true that some dreams can seem almost mystical. Perhaps you find yourself having the same recurring vision where that person talks to you or appears in a disconcertingly realistic way. This might be your mind's method of sorting out emotions you haven't fully confronted while awake, as though your subconscious is attempting to resolve something left unfinished. Let's not forget that dreams might also be byproducts of our imagination, fueled by recurring ideas or meaningful experiences you had with that person. That's why maintaining perspective is vital. Rather than chasing hidden messages in every dream, it may be more productive to see them as reminders of the personal work you have yet to do. If you wake with a strong sense of connection, it doesn't mean you should take immediate action or seek validation from the other person. According to Stoic views, authentic calm is an internal affair, not something we secure from external answers. Use these dreams as a starting point to delve more deeply into your own hopes, fears, and desires. When all is said and done, dreams, whether literal or imagined, point to the complexity of our emotional and human bonds. You may not control what you dream, but you do control how you respond to those impressions. Let them serve as a pathway for self-knowledge and emotional balance. Life, much like dreams, consists of experiences that, if we observe carefully, can teach us important lessons. Ultimately, seeing someone in a dream doesn't always revolve around what they do or don't do, but how you choose to deal with what life offers you. That recurring dream might not be urging you to reach out or wait for them, but instead nudging you to assess your own emotions and see if there's something unresolved in your inner world. Stoic philosophy stresses that we don't control the events around us, though we do control how we interpret and respond to them. So rather than viewing it as a mysterious sign, use it as an opportunity to deepen your self-awareness. Think of each dream as a mirror reflecting parts of you that you might not catch sight of during your waking hours. If that same person keeps appearing, ask yourself what it signifies to you and how it makes you feel. It might be a memory in need of closure, a lesson still waiting to be absorbed, or a sentiment lingering beneath the surface. Dreams aren't aiming to be prophesied, but gateways to your own understanding. The key is resisting the urge to get tangled in what your dream might mean for the other person, focusing instead on what it means for you. If you detect something unfinished, address it from your own standpoint. You don't need a cosmic warning to manage your emotions and thoughts. Real freedom, as the Stoics would see it, is accepting what you can't change and moving toward what you can. So the next time you dream of someone, don't see it as an invitation to seek outside answers. Embrace it as a chance to look inward, to understand your emotions more fully, and to proceed with greater clarity and peace. Dreams operate as tools, not chains that tether you to what's already past. The Stoics teach that genuine power arises from the way you choose to interpret what life presents you. Naturally, social media also tests your inner calm when faced with the world around you. Picture every post or comment as a leaf falling onto a lake. Some leaves generate ripples, while others barely cause a ripple. Will you focus on each falling leaf, or on the tranquil surface that returns once they settle? The Stoics remind us that guiding our own emotions is fundamental in staying centered. You cannot dictate what others post or say, but you can direct how you interpret it. Perhaps that unexpected like carries no deeper meaning than a fleeting moment of attention. Or maybe, even if it does, it shouldn't derail your internal balance. So the next time you see anything on social media that stirs your feelings, pause to reflect. Ask if it's really worth your energy to decode something that might hold little significance. Social platforms are tools, not an entirely accurate reflection of life. Learn to use them wisely, ensuring they don't control or define who you are. Epictetus once said, "It's not events, but our interpretation of them that upsets us." Apply this idea to your digital spaces. Observe without clinging. Stay calm. And remember, your value doesn't hinge on who clicks like or leaves a comment. It rests on how you perceive yourself and how you choose to live. Ultimately, what truly matters isn't who watches you online, but how you feel about yourself in the offline world. Following this line of thought, there's little doubt that our gaze often reveals more of our inner workings than words can. Have you ever noticed someone looking at you so intently it seems they could read every thought you're having? The power of eye contact is distinctive, able to convey what words never can. For the Stoics, truth emerges in actions more than statements, and sometimes a single glance is enough to communicate everything unsaid. When someone observes you closely, it might be a reflection of how they feel or think about you, even if they can't bring themselves to say it. That look may represent interest, nostalgia, or an unspoken but profound connection. It's as though, through their eyes, you catch a glimpse of their inner world. Yet decoding that silent language can be tricky. Sometimes it's barely detectable. Other times, it's glaringly obvious. Imagine you're at a social gathering or walking down the street, and you suddenly notice someone watching you. That lingering gaze, perhaps paired with a hint of a smile or a gesture suggesting there's more to say, may leave you wondering, what's on their mind? But Stoic philosophy again reminds us not to be consumed by what we can't control. Someone else's stare is merely an echo of their personal realm, and while it may spark curiosity or emotion in us, it doesn't define our reality. If you've ever found yourself stuck thinking about what a particular glance might indicate, remember that the decisive element is how you interpret it. Maybe it's a meaningful sign, or maybe it's just a fleeting instant of attention. The key is not allowing that moment to disrupt your inner harmony. Observe, experience, and let go. As the Stoics would say, serenity lies in refusing to let outside actions hijack your emotional state. So the next time a gaze seems to speak more than words could, bear in mind, you can relish that instant, feel a spark of connection, but you don't have to dissect it. A stare can be powerful, yes, but ultimately what matters most is how at peace you are with yourself and how you choose to respond to the outside world. Seneca put it this way: true strength isn't about resistance, but about remaining undisturbed by what can't be controlled. Carrying this point further is the notion of paying attention to our intuition, that hunch that crops up without warning, which we frequently dismiss because we doubt its accuracy. Yet if we listen closely, we might realize that inner voice is simply the sum of our experiences, knowledge, and emotions working in concert to guide us. Imagine you randomly think of someone with no obvious cause. They haven't texted or called, yet they are suddenly in your thoughts. Perhaps you find yourself recalling times you shared or replaying old conversations. Out of nowhere, they contact you, reinforcing what you already sensed. This isn't sorcery. It's your mind picking up hints that usually remain hidden from your conscious awareness. That inner compass also becomes evident when something makes you uneasy for no apparent reason. You may be in a certain place or with a certain person and sense something doesn't fit. While this feeling isn't always simple to interpret, it's a powerful tool for self-preservation or directing you toward what matters. It's almost as if your mind was sending you warnings or urging you to focus on what's actually unfolding around you. Just like many ancient schools of thought, the Stoics taught that we should not ignore our feelings, yet neither should we let them overwhelm us. Intuition is a reminder that we remain connected to ourselves and the broader world, but it must always be balanced with reason. In other words, we strive for a midpoint between respecting our emotions and making deliberate choices based on what lies within our control. So the next time you feel that unexplainable bond or a sudden conviction out of thin air, don't brush it off. Pay attention to what your intuition is telling you, but view it as a guide rather than an absolute command. Recall that true wisdom lies in harmonizing what we feel with what we can effectively manage. Ultimately, as Seneca said, Peace and clarity come not from struggling against the incomprehensible, but from accepting it as part of the human experience. Learn to heed your inner voice calmly and wisely, trusting that answers will surface when the time is right. Have you ever wondered why sometimes we know things without any logical explanation? That hunch, that instinct that suggests someone is thinking of us, even if we lack solid proof. It's not magic or mystical concepts, but rather a deeper link to our own emotions and perceptions. Intuition is that quiet whisper inviting us to hear what we carry inside, acknowledging that we don't always need evidence to believe. Imagine you're immersed in your daily routines, and someone you haven't seen in ages suddenly enters your thoughts. Moments later, that person sends you a message or calls you. You might dismiss it as coincidence, but it might just be your intuition picking up on cues we typically miss. Perhaps it's just a stray memory, a dream lingering in your mind, or even a physical sensation that sparks the sense of connection despite the distance or the silence. Learning to listen to that inner voice without constantly dissecting it is crucial. Trying to rationalize every detail may alienate us from our emotions and from the bonds we share with others. The Stoics believed we can rely on our capacity to understand and accept what's beyond our control, finding serenity in that approach. Letting go of pure skepticism and embracing our intuition doesn't mean we forsake logic, but rather that we balance it with the emotional side of who we are. So next time you feel that someone is thinking of you, don't dismiss it outright. Rather than scanning the horizon for signs, take a moment to breathe, connect with yourself, and trust what you feel. That subtle flutter in your stomach, the image that appears in your mind from nowhere, or that minute detail that reminds you of them. These are not mere accidents. They are messages from your intuition. Learn to trust it and harness it as a guide for deeper self-understanding. If you want to discover more about inner wisdom and the power of emotions, subscribe now to our channel La Sabiduría de los Siglos and enable notifications. We will reach our 1,000 subscriber goal together. Thank you for your support. If the Stoics were here, they would likely emphasize that intuition is a crucial tool, yet it demands steadiness. They'd remind us that the goal isn't to seek answers in what's beyond our influence, but to figure out how we react to what we feel. True wisdom lies in heeding our intuition without allowing it to dictate everything. Hence, when you sense that unexplainable link, that certainty that someone is holding you in their thoughts, let that feeling guide you, but never relinquish your own calm reflection. Don't ignore that inner voice urging you to explore what lies within. After all, as people often say, the heart knows things the mind has yet to discover. And remember, intuition isn't an unresolvable puzzle. It's the reflection of everything inside you, waiting to be heard and understood.